the President of the Nigerian branch of the International Law Association, Professor Damilola Olawi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, the representative of the Federal Attorney General and Minister of Justice, distinguished members of the International Law Association, Your Excellencies and heads of institutions, I stand on existing protocol, distinguished fellow speakers, my learned colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and privilege to join you in Abuja for this 9th conference of the Nigerian branch of the International Law Association. I am deeply grateful for your generous invitation and the warmth of your welcome. It is especially meaningful to me to be here because Nigeria is, in many respects, home to me. It is here that an important part of my legal formation took place. I studied at the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, and I later attended the Nigeria Law School as part of the 1987 cohort, and at a time when the law school was still in Victoria Island, VI, in Lagos, before its eventual relocation to Abuja. And those years left an enduring mark in my life. They gave me not only legal training, but also lasting friendships, treasured memories, and bonds of affection that have remained with me across the years. Among those I remember with deep gratitude is Madam Olubumi Femi Pierce, of blessed memory, who became to me an adoptive parent in the truest sense. Her kindness and generosity of spirit are part of what has made Nigeria so very personal and significant to me. My friends used to say with warmth and affection that I was almost half Nigerian. But with the passing of time, I have embraced that bond to a full Nigerian, 100%. And I do so gladly and without apology. And to my fellow alumni of the University of Ife here present, I say with great pride and affection, grateful. So it is therefore a particular pleasure to return to Nigeria for a gathering of this importance, under the auspices of an institution that has, for generations, defended a proposition of enduring significance, that international law is not an ornament of diplomacy, but an instrument of order, not an abstract ideal, but a practical discipline for protecting peace, justice, and human dignity. I therefore extend my warmest greetings and heartfelt gratitude to all of you for your presence, for your commitment, and your unwavering dedication to the shared ideals we champion here. This assembly is more than a professional gathering. It is a testament to our collective resolve to advance the rule of law, to promote justice and foster sustainable development across the continent and indeed all developing nations. Today, we convene at a critical juncture. The theme I intervene on, mitigating the impacts of economic and financial crimes on national development, challenges facing developing countries and the role of international law, could not be more timely or more vital. Around the globe, nations grapple with the consequences of economic and financial crimes that threaten to erode the very foundation of prosperity and societal progress. We are here not only to discuss these challenges, but to seek solutions to innovative, practical, and sustainable that can drive progress for generations to come. Our gathering brings together distinguished professionals, thought leaders, and advocates for diverse sections, all united by a shared vision. And our goal is clear: to confront the realities of economic and financial crimes, to understand that their impacts and to harness the transformative power of international law. Let us embark on this journey together, a journey that demands insight, unity, and bold action for the future of Africa and the wider developing world. Our theme today could therefore not be more timely, as I said. The impact of economic and financial crimes on national development, the particular vulnerability of developing countries, and the role of international law in confronting these harms. This is not merely a technical question of compliance, nor a matter for prosecutors, regulators, or ministries of finance. It is, in truth, a question about the moral and institutional foundations of the state itself. For when public wealth is diverted, when corruption becomes systemic, when illicit financial flows hollow out national capacity, what is lost is not only money. What is lost is public trust. What is weakened is governance. What is delayed is development. And what is endangered, ultimately, is the legitimacy of the state in the eyes of its own citizens. Economic and financial crime is, in that sense, not simply an offense against the treasury. It is a developmental assault upon the state itself. And yet, if the consequences are national, the enabling environment is often profoundly international. This is one of the defining realities of contemporary economic and financial crimes. Illicit wealth does not remain neatly within one jurisdiction. It travels, it is layered, it is disguised, it is protected by shell structures, hidden through beneficial ownership secrecy, moved through complex corporate arrangements, and facilitated at times by professional intermediaries operating across borders. What begins as corruption in one place may be laundered in another, invested in a third, and protected by legal and financial opacity in yet another. That reality requires candor. Developing countries may suffer the greatest consequences, but they do not bear sole responsibility for the architecture that sustains these harms. The problem is not merely local. It is transnationally organized and systematically enabled. International law, therefore, remains indispensable. To address these threats effectively, it is essential that we begin with clarity. Economic and financial crimes are not technical infractions. They are complex, they are multifaceted activities that have profound repercussions for society. And these crimes encompass a vast range of illicit behaviors, including corruption, bribery, embezzlement, money laundering, tax evasion, fraud, and the misappropriation of public funds. Each of these undermines the integrity of markets, and it distorts fair competition and hinders development. Let us consider some examples to illuminate this landscape. Corruption can manifest as a government official diverting funds intended for hospitals to private accounts, leaving communities without access to essential health care. Money laundering may involve international syndicates moving illicit proceeds through a web of offshore companies, obscuring the trial of wrongdoing. And tax evasion, meanwhile, deprives governments of the resources needed for education, infrastructure, and social welfare, deepening inequality and stifling growth. The scope and sophistication of these crimes have grown exponentially in recent decades. Globalization and technological advancement have made it possible for criminals to operate across borders, exploiting legal loopholes and complex financial networks. The proliferation of digital currencies, anonymous banking, and shell corporations poses new challenges for law enforcement and regulators. These are not abstract problems. They are lived realities for millions in the developing world, where the stakes are highest and the resources to combat such crimes are often very limited. And it is important to recognize that economic and financial crimes are not victimless. Every instance represents a direct assault on national development, whether it is a school left unfinished, a hospital without medicine, or a community denied clean water. The consequences are felt acutely by ordinary citizens. Our task, therefore, is to define these crimes, not only in legal terms, but in human ones, to see the faces behind the statistics and to understand the urgency of our work. Let me look at the impacts on national development. The consequences of economic and financial crimes are profound and pervasive. They touch every aspect of national life, whether it is economic, social, or political. These impacts in greater depth. For economic consequences, economic and financial crimes drain public coffers. They reduce foreign investment, and they distort market competition. When investors see instability, they withdraw, leaving economies vulnerable and dependent. Resources meant for roads, schools, and hospitals are lost, with long-term repercussions for growth and prosperity. The social consequences, the toll, is equally devastating. Economic and financial crimes exacerbate poverty, widen inequality, and erode trusts in institutions. Picture a mother who cannot afford medicine for her child because health funds have been embezzled, or a young graduate unable to find employment in a stagnant economy. When citizens witness impunity and injustice, their faith in government dwindles and the hope for a better future dims. The political consequences, corruption, and illicit financial flows weaken governance. They fuel instability and threaten democratic processes. Elections may be compromised by the flow of illicit money. Leaders who should serve the people become beholden to corrupt interests. The result is a vicious cycle where transparency is elusive, accountability is undermined, and progress is impeded. And these impacts are not theoretical. They are the lived realities of millions across the developing world. In many African societies, most regrettably, children are denied education. Families struggle to access health care, and communities are left behind. In every country touched by these crimes, the fight for national development is, in essence, a fight for dignity, for opportunity, and for justice. Looking at the challenges, in developing countries, they face unique and formidable challenges in combating economic and financial crimes. And these challenges are rooted in institutional weaknesses, resource constraints, corruption, and the complexities of global dynamics. So let us examine these barriers more closely. Institutional weaknesses. Many developing nations lack robust legal frameworks, independent judiciaries, and effective enforcement agencies. For instance, the backlog of cases and under-resourced courts can hinder swift investigations and prosecutions. Where institutions are fragile, criminals operate with relative impunity, and deterrence is weak. Resource constraints. Limited financial and human resources restrict the ability to monitor transactions, conduct audits, and implement reforms. Anti-corruption agencies may struggle with outdated technology, insufficient training, and the competing priorities. And often, efforts to strengthen oversight are underfunded and undervalued. Corruption. Systemic corruption undermines governance and perpetuates impunity. Officials may be complicit or unwilling to pursue meaningful change. Whistleblowers, who are vital to exposing wrongdoing, often face intimidation, or retaliation, further entrenching a culture of silence. And the global dynamics. Economic and financial crimes frequently involve cross-border elements. Illicit flows move through international banking systems, offshore havens, and complex corporate structures. The global nature of these crimes requires cooperation, yet disparities in capacity, political will, and regulatory alignment often hinder collective action. Criminals exploit the gaps and the inconsistencies between jurisdictions, making enforcement challenging. But despite these challenges, there is cause for hope. Innovation, collaboration, and determination can help developing countries build more resilient systems and societies. The task before us is great, but so too our capacity for change. Looking at a few, just to ground our discussions in reality, let us consider illustrative examples from Nigeria and other developing nations, stories that reveal both the difficulties and the possibilities of progress. Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, has made notable strides in combating economic and financial crimes. Agencies such as the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission have pursued high-profile cases. They've recovered assets and promoted transparency. One significant achievement involved the recovery and repatriation of stolen assets from former leaders, notably the Abacha loot case, which saw international cooperation deliver over $1 billion back to Nigeria. However, the challenges persist. The sophistication of financial networks and the need for institutional reform remain pressing. In Kenya, the fight against corruption has seen both successes and setbacks. The introduction of digital government platforms has improved transparency. Yet, high-profile scandals continue to highlight the need for stronger enforcement and civic oversight. Community-driven initiatives, such as citizens' monitoring of public spending, have shown that grassroots participation can make a difference. And outside of the continent, in Brazil, the Operations Car Wash investigation brought to light systemic corruption in public contracts, leading to the prosecution of senior officials and business leaders. The case underscored the importance of judicial independence, investigative journalism, and international cooperation in dismantling sophisticated criminal networks. And these case studies reveal the complexity of the challenge and the diversity of approaches. They also demonstrate that progress is visible and possible when political will, legal frameworks, and international support converge. Lessons learned elsewhere can form strategies in Nigeria and beyond, reminding us that collaboration and adaptability are key to sustained success. Let me look at the role of international law. International law offers powerful tools for mitigating economic and financial crimes. It provides a foundation for cooperation, it sets standards, and facilitates enforcement. The strength of international law lies not only in its capacity to create frameworks and treaties, but in its ability to unify nations in collective action, helping to close the gaps that criminals exploit. Key instruments include the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, the Financial Action Task Force recommendations, and the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruptions. These treaties establish standards for transparency, accountability, and cross-border collaboration. They guide national reforms, they facilitate information sharing, and they harmonize legal approaches to economic and financial crime. Enforcement mechanisms are central to international law's effectiveness. Asset recovery, extradition, mutual legal assistance, and information exchange enable states to pursue criminals beyond their own borders and disrupt illicit networks. The Abacha loot case, again, stands as a powerful example because Switzerland, the United States, and other jurisdictions collaborated to recover and repatriate stolen assets to Nigeria, overcoming complex legal and jurisdictional barriers. Such cooperation demonstrates that international law can deliver justice, even in the face of globalized crime. So the frameworks and treaties I mentioned, they set standards for transparency, for accountability and cooperation, guiding national efforts and fostering collective actions. Asset recovery, extradition, and mutual legal assistance are pivotal for pursuing criminals and dismantling illicit financial networks, and effective enforcement depends on timely cooperation and clear legal channels. That leads me to cooperation. Regional bodies, international organizations, and bilateral agreements foster dialogue, capacity building, and technical support. And these partnerships bridge gaps in expertise and amplify impact. It is sometimes said that international law is too slow, too cautious, too compromised by politics, or too inconsistently enforced to respond effectively to the complexity of modern economic crime. There is, of course, some force in these criticisms. International law does not operate in abstraction from power. It is shaped by state consent, constrained by political realities, and too often weakened by selective urgency. But its limitations do not diminish its necessity, they clarify it. When illicit conduct crosses borders, where assets are concealed through multi-jurisdictional structures, where evidence lies in several states, and where domestic authorities are frustrated by legal fragmentation beyond their reach, no national legal system, however robust, can respond adequately on its own. So international law matters because it provides the common framework through which transnational wrongdoing may be named, regulated, and pursued. It establishes shared norms concerning corruption, money laundering, asset recovery, mutual legal assistance, and state cooperation. It offers structures through which evidence may be sought, illicit proceeds traced, assets restrained, persons extradited, and obligations clarified. It creates the legal vocabulary by which public theft is no longer dismissed as a merely internal irregularity when it proceeds. Protections and consequences are international in scope. At its best, it affirms a principle of enduring importance. Sovereignty is not weakened by accountability, but dignified by it. However, the gaps in implementation, jurisdictional hurdles, and disparities in capacity persist. International law must be dynamic, responsive, and inclusive. It should reflect the realities and needs of developing countries, empowering them to lead in the fight against economic and financial crimes. Strengthening the rule of law is vital. Robust legal frameworks, independent judiciaries, and effective agencies ensure that international standards are translated into concrete national action. When the rule of law is respected and institutions are resilient, societies are equipped to prevent, detect, and prosecute financial crimes, fostering trust and stability. And ultimately, the international law and the rule of law are mutually reinforcing. Progress depends on both robust global frameworks and the capacity of national systems to uphold justice. By prioritizing the strengthening of the rule of law, developing nations can harness international legal tools more effectively. They can drive reforms and secure long-term resilience against economic and financial crime. So let me just talk about the innovative solutions, some policy recommendations and pathways forward. To truly mitigate the impacts of economic and financial crimes, we must embrace innovative solutions and bold policy recommendations. And these are not theoretical constructs, they are practical steps that can be implemented to bring about meaningful change. Let us invest in legal frameworks, independent judiciaries, and enforcement agencies. Let us build capacity through training, technology, and resources, regularly review and update laws to address emerging threats, and ensure that institutions are adequately funded and staffed. Let us implement open data initiatives, public procurement reforms, and whistleblower protections. Encourage governments to publish budgets and spending data, and create platforms for citizen engagement and oversight. Let us utilize digital tools, artificial intelligence, and blockchain to monitor transactions, detect anomalies, and enhance oversight. Advanced analytics can identify suspicious patterns, while secure digital platforms can streamline audits and reporting. Let us strengthen international partnerships. Let us share intelligence and harmonize regulations. Let us develop joint task forces and regular forums for dialogue, ensuring that enforcement is coordinated and comprehensive. And let us engage citizens, media, and advocacy groups in oversight and reform. Let us promote civic education, encourage investigative journalism, and support grassroots initiatives aimed at transparency and accountability. And let us inspire our leaders to champion anti-corruption efforts, allocate resources, and uphold integrity. Let us foster a culture where ethical leadership is valued and rewarded, where accountability is the norm rather than the exception. And these pathways, they require vision, courage, and unity. They are achievable through persistent effort and collective commitment. And by taking these steps, Nigeria and other developing nations can truly transform the landscape of economic and financial government. So the call to action is mobilizing stakeholders and fostering partnerships. The fight against economic and financial crimes cannot be won by governments alone. It is a collective endeavor that demands the involvement of all stakeholders: legal professionals, policymakers, academics, civil society, and international partners. Each of us has a unique and indispensable role to play. Legal professionals must uphold the highest standards of ethics. They must engage in continuous education and serve as advocates for reform. Policymakers are tasked with designing and implementing robust legal frameworks, ensuring that laws are enforced consistently and fairly. Academics contribute through research, analysis, and the dissemination of best practices, helping to inform evidence-based policies. And civil society organizations, they also play an essential role in monitoring government actions, raising public awareness, and providing a voice for the marginalized communities. The media acts as a watchdog, shining a light on corruption and wrongdoing. International partners bring resources, they bring expertise and platforms for cooperation, bridging the gaps that might otherwise hinder progress. So let us mobilize these stakeholders. Let us foster partnerships that span sectors, disciplines, and borders. Let us commit to a vision of development that is inclusive, equitable, and just. Collaboration must be built on trust, on mutual respect, and shared goals. By working together, we can transcend barriers and ignite progress. So today, I call upon each of you: lead with integrity, innovate with purpose, and inspire with courage. Our actions will shape the future, but our resolve will define our legacy. So in closing, economic and financial crimes undermine the very foundations of national development. They threaten progress, justice, and hope. Yet we possess the tools, and we have the knowledge and spirit to overcome these challenges. Through strengthened institutions, innovative policies, and robust adherence to international law and the rule of law, we can build societies where integrity prevails and opportunity flourishes. Let us harness the power of unity, of vision and action. Let us forge partnerships that transcend borders, that ignite progress and empower generations. We should prioritize long-term vision, sound judgment, and ethical leadership rather than short-term decisions and greed. These qualities are fundamental to ensuring our shared future and the well-being of subsequent generations, representing enduring values which we can be genuinely proud of. So I thank you for your dedication, I thank you for your passion, and I thank you for your unwavering commitment. Together, we will mitigate the impacts of economic and financial crimes. We can advance national development and uphold the principles of justice and equity. I wish you a productive and inspiring and a transformative conference, and I thank you for your attention.